Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace and its comprehensive web platform that gives you the tools you need to run your business. As a new year begins, maybe you want to start that new business, or you're thinking of doing some sort of blog to share your ideas with your neighbors and friends. Well, the world is yours, and Squarespace is the perfect web tool to help you fashion it into whatever you like. It is the platform to use when you're ready to get started on that next web project you've been thinking about. You're looking to get in and out quick without thinking too much about what your website should look like? Use one of their quick and beautiful templates to make a website that's fresh and for you. Or maybe you're more of a hands-on person. You've got lots of opinions and ideas about what exactly your site should look like. Well, Squarespace gives you all the customization options you could ever want, with no updates, no patches, no technical BS to worry about. Once you're done setting up your website, tinkering with the design if you're so inclined, or maybe just playing with the colors, there are so many extra features that Squarespace provides so that your website can thrive. Email campaigns, patronage portals, social integrations, member-only areas, analytics, commercial options, 24/7 customer support. It's everything you could ever want in one place. And look, this isn't just another advertiser partnership for me. When I launched our website for another channel that I do, Mega Projects, we went to Squarespace and I used that platform to create an elegant but super functional website. Very easy, really nothing to it. You can see it at megaprojects.net. So when you're ready to get started on that next big project of yours, big or small, if it involves a website, it's got to be with Squarespace. Right now, you can go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/brainfood, and you'll save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. And let's get into the video. Though still remembered as a date which will live in infamy, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on the 7th of December 1941 was only a prelude to the massive campaign of conquest that would soon spread untold death and destruction across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Even before the first aircraft reached Hawaii, thousands of Japanese troops striking from bases in Indochina steamed across the Gulf of Thailand into British Malaya, catching the poorly equipped colonial forces completely off guard. What followed was a string of stunning victories as colony after colony fell like dominoes under the Japanese onslaught. On the 10th of December, the mighty British battleships Repulse and Prince of Wales were sunk by Japanese aircraft, while on December the 24th, Japanese troops captured Borneo and the southern Philippines. Hong Kong fell the next day, followed by Burma, New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, Singapore, Bali, and Timor. A key strategic target for the Japanese was the rich oil reserves of the Dutch East Indies in what is now Indonesia. Following their brutal invasion of China in 1937, Japan was subjected to an oil embargo by the Allied powers, cutting off the fuel needed to drive their territorial expansion. It was not until February 1942 that the reeling Allied forces were at last able to organize a counterattack. On February the 27th, a strike force of 14 British, Dutch, Australian, and American ships intercepted the Japanese invasion fleet off the coast of Java. The resulting Battle of the Java Sea was a disaster for the Allies, who lost 5 ships and 2,300 sailors in the engagement, including Fleet Commander Admiral Carroll Dorman. Following this and another defeat at the Battle of Sunda Strait the next day, all Allied ships in the Dutch East Indies were ordered to flee to Australia or Ceylon, modern-day Sri Lanka. Any vessels which could not make the journey were to be scuttled to deny their use to the enemy. Among these ships was the HN-LMS Abraham Krinson, based at Surabaya in East Java. Named after the famous Dutch admiral who captured Suriname during the 1667 Anglo-Dutch War, the Abraham Krienson was one of 8 Jan van Amstel-class minesweepers built before the outbreak of war. Commissioned on May 26, 1937, in 1939 she was stationed in the Dutch East Indies along with her sister ship, the Jan van Amstel, Pieter de Bitter, and Ellen de Bois. On receiving the signal to scatter on March 6, 1942, the sub-commander of the Pieter de Bitter, not wanting to endanger his crew, chose to scuttle his ship in Surabaya harbour. The Jan van Amstel and Ellen de Bois decided to make a run for it, but quickly discovered they had insufficient fuel and were forced to anchor at Giliradia the next day. Meanwhile, while the Abraham Krienson had a full load of fuel, she faced the same major problem as the others. Designed for minesweeping and anti-submarine patrols in calm coastal waters, not only was she not particularly seaworthy in the open ocean, but her meager armament of one 3-inch gun and 2 20mm anti-aircraft cannons made her a sitting duck for marauding Japanese aircraft. Faced with insurmountable odds, Commander Anthony Van Miert and his crew came up with a plan best described as so crazy it just might work. Using trees and bushes cut from the surrounding jungle, the crew covered the ship in foliage to disguise it as a small tropical island, with any uncovered areas being painted to match the local local rocks and soil. While such a disguise might seem absurd on the face of it, the Indonesian archipelago contains more than 18,000 islands, many no larger than the Abraham Krinson. With the camouflage complete, Commander Van Meert gave his crew the choice to sail with him or remain in Java. Around half of the 45 men chose to stay, including all of the ship's indigenous personnel. Finally, at 9:30 p.m. on March the 6th, Abraham Krienson slipped her moorings and sailed out into the Java Sea. Commander Van Meert first headed to Gili Raja to rendezvous with the Jan van Amstel and Ellen de Bois, but on realizing that their lack of camouflage made them easy targets, he continued up the coast to Gili Gentang. This proved to be a good decision, for on March the 8th, the commander of the Ellen de Bois, realizing he had insufficient fuel to reach any friendly port, decided to scuttle his ship. Later that day, the Jan van Amstel was intercepted and sunk by the Japanese destroyer Arashiro as she attempted to break out of Lombok Strait. The Abraham Krienson was now on her own. Over the next 5 days, the Abraham Krienson slowly crept her way along the Indonesian archipelago, heading southeast towards Australia. Since her wake was plainly visible from the air, she remained anchored and camouflaged near the shore during the day and only sailed under the cover of darkness. Incredibly, the deception worked, and on March the 11th, the ship reached the open Indian Ocean, having never been spotted by the Japanese. Sailing at 10 knots to conserve fuel, she arrived in Fremantle, Western Australia, on March the 20th, 1942. She was the last Allied ship to escape from Java. Shortly after arriving in Australia, Commander Van Meert and 9 of his men were awarded the Dutch Cross of Merit for their heroic escape. On December the 28th, 1942, the plucky little minesweeper turned island was refitted as an anti-submarine escort craft and commissioned into the Royal Australian Navy as HMAS Abraham Krinson. Her crew was supplemented by survivors from the destroyed HMS Jupiter, sunk at the Battle of Java Sea. She spent the rest of the war escorting convoys off the Australian coast. Her only major action came on January the 26th, 1943, when she and the Australian destroyer HMAS Bundaberg attacked a Japanese submarine in the Bass Strait. During the engagement, the Abraham Krinson was seriously damaged by one of her own depth charges, requiring her to spend a week in dry dock undergoing repairs. Another amusing incident involved the common naval practice of hanging a portrait of the reigning monarch in the officer's wardroom. Though the ship was now under Australian command, the Dutch crew refused to allow the portrait of Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands to be replaced by one of King George VI. In the spirit of international goodwill, the ship's new commander, Lieutenant Arthur Irwin Chapman, agreed to leave the Queen's portrait up and hung King George in his own cabin instead. As a compromise, however, the crew allowed him to hang a poster of the movie star Rita Hayworth on the bulkhead across from Queen Wilhelmina. Although the Abraham Krinson was officially transferred back to the Royal Dutch Navy on May 5, 1943, she remained in Australia until 1945 when, in her last official act of the war, she cleared mines from Kupang Harbour ahead of the Japanese surrender in Timor. After the war, Abraham Krinson conducted anti-revolutionary patrols during the Indonesian War of Independence before returning to the Netherlands in 1956 and serving as a boom defence ship. She was decommissioned in 1960 and given to the Dutch Sea Cadets, who used her until 1995, when she was acquired by the Dutch Navy Museum in Den Helder and placed on display as a museum ship. She is still open to the public today, the last surviving Dutch warship from World War II, and a reminder of the daring determination and ingenuity that eventually allowed the Allies to turn the tide of the battle in the Pacific. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, please do check out our fantastic sponsor, Squarespace. There is a link below. And thank you for watching.